Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Behind the Couch on Get Vocal. Thanks for joining us. We've got our core gang. We could have our own dance crew with this group here. I'm telling you. We would like win the dance crew at least in Jacksonville, Florida with this group here.
Oh my God. Yeah. We could do a flash mob at like CrimeCon or something.
Oh, we should. Yeah. I would love that.
All right. We'll start working on choreography. We'll get ready. Something we can wear with a mask on. Abby says she's down. Tori says she can't dance. It's fine, Tori. We'll put
Tori, if you're with us, I can promise you will dance. I will make you dance. I will get you to dance and you'll have fun.
Joel from Florida, man. Oh,
Joel, I just don't believe it. I believe Joel has like an inner dance freak that he's not letting fly. I believe this.
Yeah. How are you, Joel? Long time. Jeez. Yeah. Thanks for being here on a Saturday, everyone. It's been freezing here, like 40s and 50s for
I know. I had to pull out the cardigan. I had to pull out the old man cardigan.
I kind of love it. I do. I want one in like every color. But it's beautiful today. It's just cold. And man, it's been such a week. So we've had some interesting responses to our last episode.
Yeah. I mean, this was inevitable that at some point, it's interesting that in this episode, we managed to piss off people for two completely different reasons. And one of the things that happens, not so much Shiloh, I have to say, like, this is why I love your parents so much. Your sense of boundaries and personal responsibility to me are so balanced. I've always had admiration for that. And mine are not. Mine are because I'm this age and because I did years of therapy and then I went on my own journey and then I became a mental health professional. So I've really worked at it. So it shakes me a little bit when we get these just absolute harsh and what I feel are like nice reactions. And I guess we should have prepared ourselves with it because this is the kind of stuff we talk about, right?
It is. And if you're reaching enough people, there's going to be I almost think I'm surprised that we don't get more triggered people reaching out to us. But it's the way in which you do it. And it's been an interesting week because we have had people triggered by some things that we've said, and coming at us with it. But we've also had some of the loveliest interactions with listeners.
Yeah.
And I actually wanted to read one because, well, first we got an email from a listener. She's a PhD in math. I wish I had her brain. And she said, hey, I do stats, I do all this data mining, and I do them for all different types of corporations, but I really would love to use this to do some pro bono work for social justice and criminal justice and some of the things I'm passionate about. And she and I actually talked on the phone yesterday for a good amount of time. And I pointed her in some directions, and I actually would love to utilize her at my work. And how cool is that she just reached out with an email of like, hey, do you know where I could possibly get in touch and do some of this stuff? And it's just the coolest thing. And then we had somebody write in, and I want to read this verbatim so I get it correctly, but it was just this is the way to write an email about feedback about something that we did not get right. So she says, and I'm taking like a segment from here, but I'm a master's student in international relations, focusing mainly on post and decolonial studies. And while I really enjoy your expertise in the field of forensic psychology, I thought I could give you a short feedback from the perspective of my academic field. In your latest episode on gang stalking, Shiloh used the term first world countries. While this term may still be out there quite a bit in the U.S. American discourse, I just wanted to make you aware that this is a Cold War term that categorizes the world in different classes from a US American perspective. Soviet states being second world and the rest third world or class. Therefore, from an anti-racist and post-colonial perspective, the term is highly problematic as it implies a sense of superiority and inferiority. A less problematic alternative term could be Western countries. This is obviously not the focus of your podcast, but I still thought you might appreciate the feedback.
Yeah, early on, I thank you for framing it that way. I think that was really beautiful. It was also like informative,
yes,
boundaried, firm. I mean, like it was firm. It's like there's no way that I'm not going to get the message that she's delivering.
right.
And it's framed in a way that that makes absolute sense, and I appreciate that. We got something similar from a sociologist who, like 2 years ago, because I was using a term called cultural phenomenon, or no, a sociological phenomenon. And because I'm not a sociologist, he gave me like almost a dissertation of a letter, but he did the same thing. And he said, we don't think in terms that way. I can see where you came up with that term, but we don't use that. And I just remember going to Shiloh going, how phenomenal is it that we have these brilliant listeners, like that give us this kind of feedback. It's wonderful. I just hope that like from the listener standpoint, that do go on to listen to our episodes, they understand that we are integrating this, that we are listening to it.
Right. And Esther says constructive criticism rather than destructive. And you're right. Yeah. I mean, it's so easy to, and I felt triggered too, listening to other podcasts before, and I have to realize, that person doesn't have the experience or isn't, a subject matter expert in what I'm in. So how can I expect them to know that?
Right.
And I think we've talked about on this show that even for the different topics and subjects that we talk about, we do a great deal of research because we can't be an expert in absolutely everything that's under the huge umbrella of psychology.
Right.
So we have definitely our niche areas, but we want to bring you so much more than that and have a variety of things for every episode. So, this sort of stuff that we're talking about, like the constructive criticism from just the language that we're using, is so helpful. And there's a way to do it and a way not to do it either, because we've had other cruel rantings about us maybe not getting something right or them thinking we're misinterpreting something.
Yeah, I mean, certainly with our last episode, which I felt like, of course, when we got some really strident pushback against some of the things that we talked about in our gang stalking episode. And it doesn't, the sad thing is that I felt like, I have the biggest case of imposter syndrome in the world, and that's why I love working with clients who have imposter syndrome. But we work really hard at what we do, and I'm always trying. I may be snarky, but I'm always trying to come from a place of compassion and understanding that there's a reason people get to where they are. And even when we talk about somebody like Richard Ramirez, who at the latter stages of his life, or from teenager on, he was a monster. This person was a monster who left a trail of wreckage, and there's a way he got there. He had a brutal upbringing. Does everybody who have a brutal upbringing become a serial killer? Absolutely not. But in his case, they did. But I thought for our gang stalking episode, we were really compassionate and understanding and, trying to say, these people really believe what they're experiencing, and how sad is it? Right. I felt like we really strongly said that, even though for a moment I was like, this person's really pissed off. Did this happen? And then to go back and no, we did the right thing, but clearly a couple of people were not happy.
Yeah. Well, and when Scott and I say sad, we are just absolutely naming the emotion. It's not in these people are pathetic sort of way at all. I just think of how torturous it must be to be in their shoes. It's just awful, and it's incredibly sad. Yeah. So anyway. That's where we're at.
But now what we decided we were going to be talking about may be just as controversial. So
it might be.
It might be.
Oh, let me rattle off some new patrons real quick.
Yeah.
And then we actually have a giveaway, or we're doing giveaways for our patrons every single month. And since it's the end of the month, we can do that too. So our new patrons this month are Jen W, Andrea W, Shell K, and Dawn C. So thank you so much.
Esther, you are not getting a lock of my hair because I know what nefarious and mystical things can be done with a lock of hair. So
like voodoo dolls.
It's like there's all sorts of stuff, and I know your power, lady. I'm not going to risk that. Hey, Chris. Oh, we got some more people. My favorite Dr. Jill, who refuses to come on camera. One of these days, I'm going to drag her on. Chris, April. Thank you guys for showing up. This is so cool. And Adam.
Oh, yeah, some of our patrons. I'm going to do our giveaway right now. So
yes, Esther, it is. It's Dr. Jill Biden.
The one and only. So we are giving away one of the LA Not So Confidential travel mugs this month. I have one. I love it. I use it. It's metal. It's amazing. Great quality. So here we go. I'm going to spin the wheel. Are you guys ready? Okay. No way. Our winner is Michelle, our friend of the show, Michelle Kaz. You get a new tumbler for your tea. Aw, yay, Michelle.
Yay.
All right.
I promise everybody that's in the room, I am promising you this though, everybody that's in the room today, when we make it to your town, I'm bringing you free swag.
Some swag. I know.
Bringing you swag.
Very convenient. Totally, Esther. Which is funny because I have a story about Michelle for later today, and what I'm going to talk about. So, hey, it's a generator. It's not me. Scott, how do you want to start? Did you? I know someone was asking us to follow up on the overlap between alien abductions and the gang stalking. Were you able to look into that at all?
I did, but it led me down a rabbit hole that was so fascinating because there is, I mean, for those of you that listened to the episode this week, if you had a chance to go to, well, I was going to talk a little bit about that, about some of the psych studies, but, you know, wave your hand if I go down too far down a rabbit hole. So one of the things that was so interesting about the Vice documentaries on gang stalking is that there seemed to be, while there's great group cohesion and care for each other, there was a pretty pronounced level of functioning or gap between functioning. And there were some people that were really super impaired by their beliefs versus those that were able to really kind of get through their ADLs. And they gave several examples that without even mentioning it, just by listening to the reports. And what appeared to me was the ones that were higher functioning and able to deal with the stressors of their experience were ones that felt like it was the government and high tech being used, as opposed to those that believe that aliens or some other kind of entities, those are the ones that seem to be a little less organized, to use that term organized that we talk about a lot.
Right.
So I went and looked at it, and let me give full confession. I have a good friend that I have known for almost 30 years, and I have worked with this individual. He is very, very well known. He is known in the abductee community because he's an author, but I'm not going to use his name. And he believes he's an abductee. All I'm going to say is, I don't know. And I will say this, what I find interesting as I watch this material is it's like, and bear with me folks, and please don't put me in a straitjacket. it's almost easier to believe that there's some sort of alien abduction possibility than there is government surveillance. But one of the things that's common about this is that whereas people that are gang stalked, many of the times they don't know why. They can't, like, why is this happening to you, and they have no answer.
Right.
And one of the things, and that's common also in people who are abductees, but a good portion of abductees, it merges into almost a psychospiritual experience of where I'm getting a message that we're being taken care of and that things are going to be okay, or we got to be warned about this, or the world's consciousness is rising. So it's kind of all over the place. But there's a great story. A very famous Harvard psychiatrist in the 90s decided this was going to be the focus of his study, and he interviewed and treated over 200 people who were all alleged abductees. And he was investigated by Harvard, and it kind of ruined his career for a while. But I'm telling you, he sounds very reasonable. He's like, look, all I know is these people are having a shared experience, or a similar experience that is not psychotic. I mean, he goes, this is not a psychotic process. And he kind of goes down the list of things of why it's not a psychotic process. But the documentarian also gave like a really great parallel that, you know, in every culture around the world throughout history, there have been abduction experiences, and we used to call it the fae, the fairy, you know, the other world spirits, demons crossing over from the other world to steal children or exchange children. And that was the big sort of wonder and takeaway is this the 20th and 21st century version of that type of experience? Right. So,
but still, what is the experience if it's shared, if it's been going on this long?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing that he comes away with. His name is Dr. Jonathan Mack, and his said, look, here's the thing that I know about these people is that they're not psychologically disturbed. So it's not like they're exhibiting personality disorders. It's not like they're exhibiting, none of these people are exhibiting auditory hallucinations, but they have all had, what is interesting is they've all had sleep paralysis. So when we've talked about sleep paralysis in a couple of our other shows, I haven't had it in years, but I had 3 terrifying experiences of sleep paralysis in my early 20s.
Right. Yeah. So the idea there is that maybe there's something neurological connecting all of this. Maybe that's the thread that we need to be looking at.
Well, a lot of researchers are saying, like, if they look at there's one field of research that says if you look at the people who have had this experience and you look at the commonality and the descriptors of the grays are what an infant would experience at birth when they open their eyes and they can't focus. They're going to be seeing, and sort of amorphous blobs with large places where the eyes would be, because they don't have the ability to focus. So
right. So other than, I know you've shared your sleep paralysis story with the entity that was basically sitting on your chest. What were the other 2 experiences like?
Not like that one.
Were those?
No, they were not like that. Was that sleep paralysis episode with the cat woman that materialized in my chest,
let's
like
call
Cat
her that.
Lady. That was frightening because she spoke to me, because like it was an exchange of dialogue, and it's still to this day is incredibly vivid. The other 2 episodes were kind of typical, what they call hag experiences, where you have sleep paralysis, you feel a pressure on your chest, it's really hard to breathe, you can't move, you can't change your focus, and you feel a presence in the room. So I felt a presence, but there was no exchange or anything. And that's why, I mean, those, like, there's so much neurological evidence now for those kind of experience too. Like there's something where one part of the brain just can't really boot into a waking state.
Right. Right.
Keep
Yeah.
talking. I have to open
Wow.
a shade.
Oh, okay. Well, Esther, it wasn't you, because he said that the Catwoman was black like obsidian, just
Yeah.
shiny, deep, dark
Yeah,
color.
it was like having like a woman made of shiny black stone, but alive, perched on my chest like a cat, with her nose to my nose.
Wow. Wow.
Ooh.
Ooh. All right. All right. Well, that's interesting because, during the episode, when, I'm sure it came through that my question was like, why do these people think that they are worth following, or being surveilled? And we went back and forth about is it because there is nothing special or, uniquely interesting about them that the government would want to follow them. And then we see that overlapping in alien abductions too, sometimes. So I think that's really interesting. Thanks for following up on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating stuff. I would highly like Oprah from 1994 had Dr. Mack and two abductees on, and it's very interesting stuff. It's very, very interesting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I would recommend people follow up on it. The saddest thing is, like, for one thing, or not sad. This part is not sad. Dr. Mack, John E. Mack, is really like, this is a formidable intelligence. This guy is very smart, and he is speaking from a mental health perspective. And I think the guy is the reason he's so good is, like, Harvard was like, hey, we don't want to be associated with crazy alien talk. And he was able to show that he was doing a study of a shared phenomenon over a period of like 5 or 6 years. And they were like, okay, great. There's nothing here. You're being professional about this,
Exactly.
But he was,
he wasn't advocating. He was saying, let me just see.
Exactly. And what was really sad is that he was lecturing in 2004. He was at a lecture in England and going home from dinner and was struck by a drunk driver. It was really sad. He was 74 years old, very spry, really handsome, well-spoken man. I thought what was really cool, because what a horrible way to die. But the young man who was at the wheel, Dr. Mack's family actually went and testified and said, this was a horrible, tragic mistake. And we don't want the driver's family to suffer, or him to suffer. Like, yes, he should have been driving drunk, but this was just a horrible accident. And I thought, I don't know if I would have the classiness to do that.
You don't hear about that very often. Oh my goodness.
So
gives me chills. They did that.
Braun is, Paul Jasek, a dear friend, is listening to us. He's had the hag experience as well. Yeah, mine was really terrifying. I mean, now it's like, it's a great story to be able to tell. But
it is.
But
it is a good one.
Braun, let's see, Braun, check out UAP research, visual enhancement of photos from 30 years ago. Have 30 years. Here's the thing is, I am agnostic, but I'm like Mulder. I want to believe. I mean, I think it's fascinating. I think it's sort of a selfish cosmology to think that we're the only things in this entire vast universe that have intelligence. It just doesn't really mesh for me. The thing I don't get is, if you have the advanced technology to get here or to slip through dimensions, then you don't need to be like coy about it, right? You don't need to be like slowly taking people and getting sperm and egg samples. It's like all that stuff could be done without our knowledge, clearly. At least that's my view. So I just think something else is going on, or maybe we're some alien kid's science experiment.
I wonder if it's too much to ask if Esther could commission a Photoshop of you and I as Mulder and Scully. I mean, I don't know if it's too much to ask, but I might pay her for that. For the right price. Okay. So So do you want to talk about a couple of our favorite conspiracy theories?
So you posed that, and I thought, God, what is my favorite? Like, I mean, when we first started talking about Q 18 months ago, I thought, well, this is hilarious. And clearly it's not hilarious anymore, right? It's just not hilarious.
Right.
But I will say one that I've really liked for a long time is the missing time theory. Do you know about that?
Okay. No,
so
tell us.
I only heard about it in the last decade, and I think it's fascinating. The missing time theory is a theory that a handful of historians have. Hold on one second, let me bring it up. I just find it like so cool. So it was published first, the theory was first published in 1991 by Aribert Illig, and it hypothesizes a conspiracy by the Holy Roman Emperor Otto, Pope Sylvester, and Emperor Constantine to fabricate a dating system. We're about 400 years off of our actual year.
Okay, so Joel asked the
Yes, that's it. It's the Middle Ages thing, that the Middle Ages actually didn't exist.
I have not heard that. Okay, so
well, they wanted
to
do it to place them at the year of AD 1000 and to rewrite history. And so supposedly it was to legitimize Otto's claim to the Holy Roman Empire. Now, the thing that makes it possible is that, like, there were so many people that were illiterate at the time. So it's like, maybe you could get away with that. I don't know if we'll ever know, but it's very interesting.
That is interesting.
And so he and the evidence for it is that we don't have a lot of archaeological evidence that can be dated between 614 and 9/11, the years 614 and the year 9/11. I don't know. What's yours? Well, there's mine.
Yeah. Well, I want to tell you about one that I learned about in October. And I was in New York when I did the Get Vocal that one week with Rebecca Sebastian and Michelle. And it was freezing. And so we were sitting in our accommodations, I don't know, on our phones, waiting to go to dinner or something. And Michelle says, have you guys seen this, that birds aren't real? And I said, tell me more. So she got this article from her sister, Danny. So I want to say, Danny, thank you for hours of entertainment that night. Let me tell you, we were quickly all down a rabbit hole to talk about who are these people that think that birds aren't real. And forgive me for looking down because my laptop's down here because my camera was screwed up. So I'm kind of all over the place on a couple devices. But in 2017, a website popped up, and birdsaren'treal.com, still there. Please go visit it. It's lovely. But it tells you all about the history of this movement, all about how during the Cold War times, I believe. Let me get this right. Hang on. That essentially a genocide of all of the birds occurred in order to replace them with robots that could be part of surveillance.
Cameras and microphones.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So let me just read you what the purpose of the movement is. So the movement exists to spread awareness that the U.S. government genocided over 12 billion birds from 1959
it's a bird
to
genocide.
And replace these birds with surveillance drone replicas, which still watch us every single day. I mean, look out the window right now, guys.
Yeah, my
look at
crow.
that closely.
Now the crows are taking peanuts from me, so they look like they're eating them, but I guess it's all fake.
It's all fake. I'll get to that, because like, what is bird shit? What are bird eggs? Hang on. There's research to back this up. So the initial goal of this, of course, was surveillance, and it has just replicated throughout the world. So they're basically biological birds no longer exist on U.S. soil. So this is just to us here in the U.S. And I mean, you know, it's scary. I could see how gang stalkers are also kind of overlap with some of these birds aren't real people. But the eggs that we see in the 21st century are specifically designed by the government to appear indistinguishable from what eggs once were. So the scientists are able to replicate a lot of what we, know to be a quote unquote egg. Bird poop, something else, it's thought to be really oil discharge from the drones. I mean, that makes
so it could
sense,
be
right?
like a total
liquidy
diesel engine, like it's eating my peanuts and turning it into fuel. Maybe they had little tiny nuclear reactors inside of them.
Right. So all of the meat, quote unquote meat in birds, is 100% synthetic. It cooks up just like regular meat, but you want to think about what you're putting into your body, because it's all synthetic and made by the government. But so this website popped up in 2017. It's a satire website that kind of came about in this era of post-truth politics that we've been seeing. And it's so funny because a lot of the articles from back then talk about it and talk about QAnon as like this cute little weird conspiracy theory
so cute.
years ago. And now it's like, oh my God. But they have done a ton of publicity stunts. They've done what look like billboards. They'll do videos, but then they'll Photoshop like billboards on, Hollywood Boulevard, birdsaren'treal.com. However, it is a movement, let me tell you, and it's very smart because there's a ton of merch on the site. So I say go support them, buy their merch, be ironic.
So let's be clear. It is a satire website, but many people do not know that it's satire.
There we go. Thank you. Oh, you can't see that. Okay. It's a Birds Aren't Real flyer. This was sent to us by Jason Esri, in his hometown over the holidays. And he took a picture of it. But you can see there that, there it is. It says, birds aren't real. Wake up, Savannah. Government surveillance drone, not a pigeon. So this was hilarious because when we were in New York, I was like, I cannot believe this is a conspiracy theory that people are falling for. It's just so well done. The whole, satirical angle to it is,
I think
fantastic.
For me, the thing that's so interesting is that I think we're all waking up. Like, I guess Q and others would want us to wake up to what they believe is actually happening. And what I think the real awakening as a mental health professional that is emerging for me is understanding that there's a big part of our population that for some reason, and maybe it's the ongoing trauma of 4 years of this toxic administration, are traumatized and need to believe in something. And I mean, I posted a couple of things on Facebook that I really strongly believe is that some Q believers will start to move away from that belief system. And if you guys have any chance, or if you're interacting with somebody that still believes with it, or they're questioning it, try and be compassionate. I mean, it's really like, think of yourself as you are helping someone deprogram themselves and get out of a cult. And I mean, the bigger thing that I think about too is that the scary thing for me is that if this many people can be manipulated like this, what else can be done? Like for a really good concerted effort by, seriously, the things that we got during the last election with, finding out that there were Russian sort of propaganda farms that were posting and like changing media, and people fell for it. I think the harsh reality is realizing that kind of work is here to stay.
Yeah, very interesting. I just finished a book all about it. It's basically the history of Instagram, but of course they had to fold in all of Facebook in there too, and just how that all happened is just a fascinating read. Braun says, well, answer this. Why don't you ever see bird bones? Yet there's so many birds. Where do they all die? Is there a bird cemetery, a bird death pit?
Well,
I've never seen a bird bone except in synthetic.
Oh, exactly. Well, that's what Joel was saying, is that means chicken is vegan. So he's really happy to hear that chicken is vegan.
Oh.
But that's also for the people that are really big proponents of Bigfoot and Sasquatch, is that like when you say, well, why don't we see any spore or remains? And it's because, they're interdimensional beings, and they don't die here on Earth. They die on the other plane of existence or something.
Oh, I have not seen that on Hunting for Sasquatch or whatever that show is. And you guys, if you have conspiracy theories,
please do.
You want to jump on and
unlock
tell us about them? Do it. Kelly brought up, I don't know if it's a conspiracy theory, it's a phenomenon, but I also find the Mandela effect really interesting. So, that it kind of takes the name for when people are sure that Nelson Mandela died in prison in the 80s. It's a part of this memory that we just have, when that didn't actually happen.
There's another example, the movie Kazam. So people think that Sinbad was in a movie playing a genie named Kazam, and that movie never happened. Because there was another black actor in a movie about a genie. Yeah, there was Shaquille.
It was Shaquille O'Neal, wasn't it?
Yes, Joel,
is my memory serving me correctly?
But what?
Or that sometimes it's visual, like a lot of logos and images, like the Monopoly Man. Everyone thinks he has a monocle. He doesn't actually.
Are you sure?
I know, right? I'm sure.
I've always thought of him having a monocle.
He doesn't. And I mean, even what is it, Ace Ventura 2, when he's making fun of the man that has the monocle?
From Facebook. Melissa Garcia is talking the one about, she says, I still believe it was the Berenstein Bears. But what, Melissa, what was that theory? So was it that it was supposed to be the Bernstein Bears?
I have this one right here. Hang on. I had that one. So it's actually spelled with an A, like stain, Berenstain Bears, and everyone thinks it's Steen, like Stein. Yeah, Adam Berenstain. I know. There's a million of them.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Curious George never has a tail in the cartoon. Just he's a monkey without a tail.
Vicky also says, why does it always have to be all birds? It seems a lot more plausible if it were only some. I agree with you, Vicky. I agree with you.
Right? That's a lot of work. But yeah, the Mandela effect is super, super interesting. I'm trying to find another good one here, if you guys remember any.
Oh, Adam, yeah, the China tried to genocide birds in the 1960s. What did that set off? Like, were they trying to get rid of pigeons because they were too loud or something? No, or something like that.
Like the parrots.
Oh, I love the parrots. Oh, they were eating the seeds. Okay.
I do too. If you guys, my favorite podcast of last year was called California Love, and it was put out by the LAist. And it's a local resident journalist, photographer from the area, and he does an episode. It's about eight episodes long, but each one is about a different phenomenon or cool thing in LA that you need to know the history about. And one of them is the parrots and how did they actually get here. And there's a lot of different theories and sort of urban legends about it.
I thought it was just escaped from people's homes, or they let them go. One of the stories is about a pet shop where there was a fire, and so they escaped during the fire when the building burned down. But there's other ones about them being shipped up here from Mexico, because they come from South America. But they're these beautiful green parrots that are it's like a bunch of screaming toddlers are flying across the sky. But they're also hilarious because they eat a lot of things that other animals don't. Like, they will eat these palm nuts and all the palm trees here, and they hang upside down like monkeys. Yeah. Like, they'll hang by one claw and gnaw at them. So it's super cool. Or maybe they're faking. They're just drones. Yeah, they're just drones sent here by another country.
They're very loud drones. They need to be replaced. Oh man. Yeah, I mean, you know, when we talk about alien abductions, and it's so funny because when I teach about different disorders, that I teach in the Jailers Academy, and we talk about mental health disorders that they will likely come across. And when I talk about delusional disorders, I'll always use alien abduction as sort of something to distinguish between bizarre and non-bizarre. And it always leads to a conversation of, well, how do we know? You know, and I love that conversation because that's how I feel about conspiracy theories. And of course, every movie about a conspiracy theory or someone who believes in it, it's actually happening, you know, and it's
well, I think you're hitting on something that's really important about that, is that these experiences place people in a position of importance. And that can be really hard. I mean, I did not know the term gang stalking until we started working on it. And I had a couple of people when I was working on the prison yard that were targeted individuals. And unfortunately they were in prison, and their crimes were due to their belief systems. And I won't reveal any more information about that because I don't want to, it's been decades, but still don't want to say anything that would reveal confidences. But I can say this is that they really, really believed, one, could not understand why it was happening. And it was like, there was like, I don't know, I just want it to stop. And the other one was like, oh, well, it's because I have this information and I can't tell you what the information is. So that to me was very interesting, what you're talking about. Like, I don't know if we can use bizarre versus non-bizarre anymore as a metric, right?
Right. Yeah. Can you say maybe like the category of types of crimes that they would get?
The one who really felt like he had information was destruction of property, like felony level destruction of property, believing that the property had cameras and microphones in it. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, you know, it's very interesting, especially when you work with a criminal population, as you did inside the prisons, as I did as they came out, because you see so many people, right? I mean, think about how many people you saw in the prisons and who I saw on parole constantly coming out. And someone's always got a story, right? Not that I'm saying that everyone's like, oh, everybody's innocent, because that's kind of a myth, especially in prisons, right? That everyone is in there saying that they're innocent, because they're not. They're not saying that. But everyone has a story about how things happen and transpire. And I think as psychologists, especially in a therapeutic, like not just assessing, but building a relationship and doing therapy with these individuals, that you're the person that they're probably getting to tell this story to full on without being cut off by an investigator or an attorney or somebody else who doesn't care. We're kind of holding that space with them. And it's a weird place to be in when you go, God, that's totally possible that they could have got wrapped up in this thing. Not that they still didn't make bad decisions and choose not to do it, but well, man, it's not as black and white.
Well, with criminal behavior, it's not, but it's also, I think the danger for us as clinicians is we always have to be careful about being drawn into the delusion. And it is, it is
exactly. Yeah.
Right. It's hypnotic. I mean, and you can, I've also been in the position of somebody telling me absolutely a crazy story that turned out to be completely true, except for the part where they're taking responsibility for the things that they had a part in it. Yeah. I got sued. I mean, I was about to get sued while working at the prison for putting a chip in one of my clients' heads. I didn't tell you that? Yeah. Oh no, I came to work one morning and there was an envelope on my desk, and a thick envelope, and it had gone all the way to like the Department of Corrections, CDCR for California, and then come back through. And I read it, and I went to my supervisor. I'm like, are you kidding? Like, what do I do with this? And she goes, oh no, there's supposed to be a filter. There's supposed to be a person who filters these, like, because that's completely bizarre. And then of course she was really funny. Dr. Vickers, May Vickers, she was really great. She goes, did you do it? And I was like, no, Dr. Vickers, I did not put a chip in this man's head. Tell me if you did. And but I called the attorney's office, or the investigator, and he profusely apologized. He said, I'm so sorry, we have a new staff member that hasn't been trained how to go through these. Yeah.
Screw this out. Yeah. Oh boy. Wow. So it was paperwork.
It was a clerk. Actually filed. So it came in, the complaint was made by the inmate, and it goes through the whole complaint system. Right. It goes all the way up. So and then somebody at the top, before it comes back down, is supposed to say, oh, this isn't legit. And they just didn't get to that part. So.
Yeah. Adrian says, I have a question. Do patients on the East Coast tend to have delusions related to the government? And
that's a really interesting question. And that's actually, I work a lot with that. I would say we have just as many government delusions as we do have entertainers. I mean, I think one of the things, and this is what I teach when I lecture and teach to law enforcement, is that we do have a number of people that come from around the world with delusional disorder, that believe that they are married to celebrities. Yeah. I mean, they are absolutely firmly believe that they're married to Kanye or Beyonce, or, whoever the latest social influencer, model or fitness expert. I mean, we're seeing a lot more too, like male fitness influencers that are teaching virtual classes, because everybody's living their lives online right now during quarantine. We've seen a huge spike in these numbers.
Sure. Oh, that's interesting. So not necessarily that they live there, but we see people travel to California, LA, Hollywood to try and make contact. And I'm sure that happens back east. I mean, they probably have a whole unit specialized like that.
But I think the stuff about the government stuff is very interesting, because it's been around for a long time. And I think we even talked about this in our episode before, is that in Victorian England, there were tons of reports of citizens in Britain saying that they were really tired of Queen Victoria sending them covert messages, and tell her to stop sending me these. And there's been sort of this kind of belief for a while our technology just now starts to catch up that can be folded into the delusion. But like, I would say also our huge fans. Let me grab the book because I want to show this.
Yeah. Kelly and Adrian, I love your
you guys, if you have a chance,
stories going on here,
please support Robert Kolker, who we have done an interview with, and he's just an amazing author. This book is fantastic. Hidden Valley Road. It is about a seminal turn in the understanding of schizophrenia and psychosis in psychiatric medicine. And it's a story of a family with 12 children. Yeah, it's called Hidden Valley Road.
One more time, put it in front of your face.
Your library has it. You can get it on Kindle. It is so well written. Kolker is just an amazing author, and he wrote more concisely about our understanding of schizophrenia than any professor I have ever had, any textbook I've ever had. In the first like 3 or 4 chapters, it's just beautifully done.
Yeah.
But this, and he outlines very well through family interviews the delusions that the mentally ill family members had, and all of them different. You know, can you imagine growing up with all those siblings, 8 of them profoundly mentally ill, all with different hardcore delusions?
My goodness. Yeah, I can't wait to read that. Scott and I both have copies. Scott's going to be on Crime Writers on their Patreon. They do a book club.
I think that's
Toby Ball does a book club. What month is that going to be? Like April that you're doing that?
Yep.
Yeah. So
Braun, I can't say enough good things about it. It is just a great book, and very sad. But it's almost like, I feel like it should be on the NAMI reading list, you know, National Alliance for the Mentally Ill. Like, this really kind of helps people understand that, you know, how this stuff happens. It's amazing. And also it really outlines what we used to do to mothers, which was awful. We used to have this term called the schizophrenogenic mother, because we just, like, of course, if there's something wrong with your kids, blame mom. It's mom's fault. Yeah. Well, it wasn't, you know, this was even like, there's a huge debate that even lasted up until the 60s, and even into the 70s, about the schizophrenogenic mother, so that it was all nurture and it had nothing to do with genetics. And I even had a professor in my first year of doctoral work that was a very strong proponent of the family influence on schizophrenia. And I was like, dude, I only have a master's and I know that's not true. Come on.
Interesting.
Yeah. Shannon, yeah, how about absent fathers?
Wow.
Absolutely.
Oof,
absolutely.
My goodness. Yes. So we're tossing around this idea. I wonder what you guys think of it, of maybe doing like a month or 2 of vintage sort of LA noir crimes, and just picking a few that are old that we can talk about that happened in the city of Los Angeles, and of course try and weave in some sort of psychology there. So
great.
I wonder if you guys would be interested in that. Cool. Good. We're going to start working on it. Our next episode is going to be on the history of sex work. So you guys might have saw it on my phone, but I'm reading a great book right now called, this is just book club tonight, A Curious History of Sex.
We've got I think you're going to really, I think everybody's going to really like this episode. Shiloh and I always like to position ourselves so that people understand that we are completely sex positive, and, you know, we're progressive in that whatever your kink is or your choice is, it's about body autonomy as long as nobody's getting hurt. Am I paraphrasing that correctly? Okay.
Yep.
And
Yep, sounds good.
My dissertation advisor was the head of a research group at Hunter College in New York that focused on a lot of these issues, and their published works about male and female sex workers is absolutely fascinating. And I've got some great data that we're going to be pulling in, and recommendations for reading if anybody's interested. It's really, really interesting stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah, I saw you got
by
a great
Dr.
article
Kochen.
sent
Dr.
to
Kochen was
us,
the one she presented.
or a
I used to
chapter in a
go, I
book by
went
a
3
publisher
years in a
already.
row to this great conference called, the short name is Quad S for 4S, for it was the Society for the Scientific Study of Sexuality. And it was absolutely mind blowing and eye opening to me to see and hear all of this phenomenal research about sexuality. Like, I think the world would be a lot healthier if they would listen to these kind of studies, and professors would all be a lot less hung up.
Yeah. I remember you going to those conferences, and you always came back like just completely raving about it. Let's see. I just want to say that Kelly said if there's any sex workers that you know or that are on here, H&R Block is advertising to help you with your taxes. No judgment. Love that. And Adrian wants to know, Scott, who do you collab with at the VA? You were asking about psychiatrists, right?
I can't really say names, but I have to say, like, I had one problematic experience with a VA psychiatrist, and the last 3 psychiatrists I've been working with have been fantastic. And we have been working together with delusional clients, delusional vets. And yeah, there's some really great ones there. And they're in the heart of it. These are people that are working on inpatient psychiatric units. So they're really seeing not only people with delusional disorder, but like long-term trauma and PTS, what we try and get away from disorder and call it post-traumatic stress syndrome now. They're really seeing the worst of it. So yeah, I'm loving all the feedback we're getting about the noir crimes, because I got a great Taschen book, coffee table book of all LA vintage crimes, stuff that I had never heard of, including one of the first known female serial killers here in LA, and that we have not even mentioned yet. So we will, Adrian, I'll post it for you. I will.
We will. Take a picture of it for me, Scott, and I'll put it. We have if you go onto our Instagram, we have one of the little highlights reels of stories, and sometimes I'll just take pictures of books that I'm reading, or something that is interesting. Of course, our references will always be on our website.
Fatty Arbuckle, that's a brutal story. Ooh, Fatty Arbuckle. And also, my dear friend Paul over here on Facebook is talking about. Paul, do they still do the Dearly Departed tour? That was really fascinating. You could take a tour through LA in the back of a hearse, and our friend Steve Vaught was one of the hosts on that, I think. And they would tell you about some of the really sad and brutal deaths of movie stars throughout the years.
I'm pretty sure it's still going, because I think I follow them on social media. I mean, I'm sure right now it's not, but yeah, that's very cool stuff. But we'll try to not do like tons of ones that everybody knows about, but we'll find some super interesting.
Angie, I don't know. I know this much is true. So. That sounds familiar, and I probably should know it, but what is it? I don't know that one.
It's not ringing a bell for me either. I know this much is true. Huh. Well, I hope everyone is doing well and hanging in there. I know it's been really tough at my job. We're losing a lot of people to COVID, and it's just really hitting and devastating
Angie,
folks right now.
It's the it's the guy who plays the Hulk, who's such a great actor. It's about basically 2 twin brothers, and one is schizophrenic, and the other is just sort of a house painter, I think. And I have not watched it, but I remember seeing the previews for it, and I have to tell you, it was like, even just the previews were a gut punch, because I've worked with so many families that are trying to adjust to their severely mentally ill children or spouses or parents, and it's quite a challenge. It's really a challenge. Mark Ruffalo, yes. Thank you.
Jeez. Well, yeah, Mark Ruffalo, he's so good. All right. I think that's good. We started a little early. Actually, we started exactly an hour ago. So thank you all. Shannon, feel better. She says she's not feeling too great. Take care of
I
yourself.
hope everybody's
Shannon,
considering
clear
getting
germs. Nice.
vaccinated. Because Shiloh and I are out there, we were able to, I've gotten my first Moderna shot. I would take a Moderna shirt. I didn't get a shirt, but I would wear it if I did.
They didn't give you a shirt?
I'm getting that, my next one next week.
I got Moderna.
Tori, you're getting yours. Great. Just be careful. You know, the vaccines are really great, but everybody still has to be careful. We also have to be careful because there are a lot of people who are choosing not to get vaccines for various reasons that we won't go into. So we're not out of this yet. I just want everybody to please be safe.
Kelly, how are you on a waiting list? Aren't you a psychiatric nurse or in healthcare? That's insane. But yeah, please. Yeah. Hey, we're not medical doctors, but we got ours. I guess that's what we'll say, right?
Oh God, I don't.
That'd be a good show idea. Anti-vaxxers.
We're already getting it from the Gang Stalkers and some people that don't agree with me diagnostically. So.
Yeah, we'll give it a break. We'll talk about some vintage stuff. All right. Thank you guys so much for being here with us. We appreciate if every one of you showing up on a Saturday in the middle of your day or night, and not every Saturday, every other, but still. So it's a chunk of your time.
Quarantine has been hard. COVID has been terrible, but it's brought us together in a way. So thanks for being our audience, and thanks for listening and being a great support.
It totally has.
Bye, guys.
We'll see you guys in a couple weeks. Thank you. Bye.